Hello students, welcome back. So let's begin with our learning of the concepts of ADAS and the related aspects and proceed from where we left in the last video. In our previous video, we talked about the definition of AD, what all are the key points to define AD, why AD curve doesn't slope downward and why it's showcased moving upward in the whole chapter. And then we talked about the schedule. Schedule here, whenever we are talking about schedule, it always talks about the tabular representation. So it's just a table. Wherever we have the word schedule, it means the tabular relationship. Right. So we discussed the relationship between AD and Y, the components of AD as C and I. And I told you that whenever it's a closed economy or three-sector model or the open economy, what all would be the components of AD. And for the sake of this chapter, we are to just focus on this relationship. AD is equal to AS. So for better learning of AD, we need to explore the precise details of C and I. So today's focus of this video would be learning about C first. AS also was just told how it is just a reference line which rises at an angle of 45 degrees so that it is always equidistant from x and y axis, and hence we are able to justify that the production in the economy is always equal to the income in the economy. So let's begin. After this recap, let's begin with the consumption function. It's a wonderful topic, very easy and hence very scoring also, and very important from paper's point of view because it's very often asked there. So the relationship between income and consumption is called the consumption function. And when it comes to, functional relationship, when we say functional relationship, it means there is, a live relationship. For example, I'm just writing prehand C is equal to C bar plus BY. This is the function of consumption. Consumption function is showcased this way. So I'm just trying to make you understand why do we call it a functional relationship. Functional means any change brought on right side will bring a change in the left side. So it's a functional relationship. The changes here showcase the change here or bring a change here. That's why the C is impacted by these two components. And later on, I'll tell you that it has got two components. This first is autonomous and the other is induced. We will be discussing about the same, the autonomous component and induced component. So let us see, what do you mean by the term C, the consumption? So there are several points to it. Let's have a quick look on its table and diagram for a better understanding. So whenever we are plotting consumption function, we would show it with respect to income. That when income is rising, say at a rate of 0, 50, 100, 150, the consumption would inevitably be rising. But the most important point here to see is, irrespective of zero level of income, there is a positive value of consumption. So there is never ever zero consumption in the economy. It does never happen, right? And the other part is that yes, with increase in income, the consumption also is increasing. There is one more point to understand, that we see a gap of the delta factor here is 50. That income is rising at a rate of 50. But what is the rate of rise in consumption here? See, from the initial value 20, it's beginning at 40, then 40, then 40 is rising. So there is again one point to be understood here, that delta C would always be lesser than delta Y. Because if you talk about the real life scenario, if you have 100 rupees with you, right, you would tend to spend out of that 100, 60, 70, 80, but would be lesser than 100 because you are a rational human being. You know that future is unpredictable. So you need to save a bit of your income for, from consumption, and that savings have to happen to safeguard you for future, for any unforeseen circumstances. So point is, there is some amount of 10 units which is not consumed at every next level. So what is that? That is savings for the economy. So when we talk about this schedule, you understand now that C has to begin from a positive value, C has to be shown increasing, and C has to rise at a level lesser than the rise in income. This is beautifully given as the law, Keynesian law, Keynes' psychological law of consumption. We have it, psychological law of consumption. What does it mean? As I told you little before, that Keynes emphasized that the human psychology is to save a bit for future unforeseen circumstances, and hence he called that consumption. He simply reiterated that consumption would always be, for a rational human being, consumption would be lesser than the income generated. So that's why this trend of C, which is rising with rise in income, but it is rising at a lesser pace, is driven by this Keynesian psychological law of consumption. When we talk about, so these points are 20 is the minimum level, and then C rises with respect to rise, and the rate is the lower than the rate of change of Y. Now, when we talk about the diagram, ideally, I always emphasize that my students should be, for the sake of full marks, should be making it rise at a uh, not at a steeper rate. It should be little less steep. So C should be this way. It should be flatter, and Y should be steeper, and it is just at an angle of 45 degree. So this is a comparison, and in our previous video also we discussed that this point is called break-even point. Why do we call it break-even? Whatever you earn, you consume. So here the break-even is C is equal to Y. It means you before this point are asking for money, but after this point you are able to save. So this point is called savings in the economy, and these are the savings in the economy. Right. You can really analyze, as is given in the observations here, that C starts from 20. And when we talk about C beginning from 20, this component is called autonomous consumption. What do you mean by the term autonomous consumption? Autonomous means independent, and you would be using this term many a times. In this macroeconomics, you would be talking about autonomous investment also, right? So autonomous means which is independent of the other factor, and here it's independent of the variable of income which we are talking about, and which with respect to which we are trying to just check out the changes. So C is beginning from 20. So 20 is the level of autonomous consumption. And when we say autonomous consumption, it means that has to happen. You think of somebody who is not earning. Would he not be consuming? He would be begging, borrowing, stealing, or this saving from his previous savings. But there would be some consumption. It's never so that at zero level of income, consumption also goes zero. That's why in next pages, I would definitely be telling you the breakup of this. Initially, C is above Y line. So it is later on it is below Y line, it indicates the rate at which C increases is lower the rate at which Y increases. It has been talked about. And this point is called break even wherever C and Y are intersecting each other. So this diagram clearly shows the break even point with respect to C and Y. So, see, when your income is zero, you are still consuming. It means you are either consuming from your past savings or you are borrowing. So, this point before break even is called saving or borrowing, and this area after break even is called savings, when you are able to save a bit from your consumption. So, next point is the slope of consumption function. So far, we haven't talked about consumption function. Once again, I'm telling you that when we talk about consumption function, it's represented as C is equal to C bar plus BY. Let me explain the same. C bar here is the autonomous component. When I say autonomous consumption, and this becomes then induced consumption. And when I say induced means dependent. And autonomous means independent. So in this diagram also, when we are talking about consumption beginning from 20 instead of 0, so the value of autonomous consumption happens to be 20 here. B is MPC, which is right now elaborated here. I'll give you the details. B is nothing but MPC, or we say marginal propensity to consume, and this is nothing but the slope of consumption curve. Slope of consumption curve means the rate at which the inclination of the consumption curve is decided. Right. And why? Y means the income. So as you see that people, those who are earning 10,000 a month are also managing their households, and those who are earning 10 crores a month, they're also managing their households. So point is, with the rise in income, consumption tends to rise. So we have this dependency that when income is increasing, consumption would be increased. But as I told you that even if this becomes zero, if there is no income at all, there is a bare minimum level of consumption which would happen whether we are earning or not. And that's why we say C function has got two components, C bar and BY. C bar is the autonomous consumption and BY is the induced consumption. And in this very format, this B is nothing but this MPC, marginal propensity to consume. And marginal propensity to consume is nothing but the slope, and slope means change on y-axis with respect to change on x-axis. Now, what have we shown on y-axis? We have shown y-axis as the delta C, and the change on x-axis is the delta y. So what becomes the value of B? B or MPC becomes delta C by delta y, the change in consumption with respect to change in income. Now, let's understand, what does it mean? It simply means that if we happen to have some additional income, what component of that income would be consumed and rest of it would be saved. So if we have, see, as C is a straight line curve, it simply says that it has got a constant slope. It means the value of B remains the same all throughout. So here, as we have seen, I'll showcase it with the previous table, right? We are showing that income is increasing by 50, the consumption is increasing by 40. So what is delta C? Delta C is 40 and delta Y is 50. So what is my MPC here? MPC becomes 40 by 50, that's equal to 0.8. If you see the same values at this level, right? From 100 to 150, again, delta Y is 50, but delta C is 40. It simply means that MPC again is 40 by 50. So for the whole table, this whole table, my MPC would be, we would be beginning here from, because the first value of M can never be defined. We have very well read in our previous classes that marginal means change. And for change, we need to have the previous level. So as we are not given any level before 0, so we cannot define marginal at the initial value. So here it is 0.8, 0.8 and 0.8 going to be. So MPC is nothing but the rate of change of consumption with respect to additional income. So this is it. So MPC is the deciding factor at which rate, the C curve would be showcased. For example, if we are showcasing C as this or C as this or C as this, it's just because of the changed values of B, means the slope. Because the B has changed here, because we are showcasing I the same way for all the three, and C is beginning from the same value for all the three, and C is made up of C bar plus BY. Here, C bar is constant for all, Y is the same for all. It means which is the deciding factor to change its inclination. Here or here or here, it's the slope which is deciding at which rate it has to rise. Now, you must understand that MPC can be asked to be presented in a diagrammatical form. So how do we present? Very simple, though it's right there in front of your eyes. But what you have to show, because it is talking about C curve. So simply make a C curve. C curve rises this way, bit flatter and begins from some positive value. Take any 2 points because it is M. M means relative position is to be talked about. So there are 2 points taken. So at this point and at this point, you have some values of C and Y at this, you have some values of C and Y at this. So what change has been brought when you move from this point to this point? The change is this much has been increased in terms of income, and this much has been increased in terms of consumption, because at this point your consumption level was this, right? You would be seeing it at y-axis, and at this level, at this point, I'm writing it as M and N points of reference. So what change has come from point M to N in terms of income and consumption when is showcased on this diagram? So that is nothing but, you may write any name, say K. So how would you showcase? How have you to give the value of MPC? MPC is delta C by delta Y in this diagram. Delta C is NK by MK, and NK as is shown here, if you incorporate this also. So NK is the consumption is 40 and this value is 50, and hence MPC becomes 0.8. Now, the point is there is one more concept. It's not MPC, it's APC. What is the value of APC and how APC and MPC are different? A means the absolute and M means the relative. A means it's at any point of time when your income is this, what is your level of consumption? And M is when your income changes from this to this. So M means you're talking about the additional income, but A means the exact value, absolute value. This is absolute expression and that is relative expression. So APC is C by Y and MPC is delta C by delta Y. So point is, if somebody wants that you please show APC with the help of a diagram, what is to be made? Because it's talking about consumption concept, make C curve. Take any one point here, drop it down on x-axis and y-axis, right? Say this is point K, this is point L, and this is point M, and this is point P, and this is origin. I'm taking R because many a times we reserve P as the price in economics, right? Though there is no problem taking it. So if for this very diagram, they say, what is the value of A, B, C? How would we define it? C by Y. So at this point of time, at point K, what is the value of C? C is KL. This much is consumption. And what is the value of income? Income is MK OL level of consumption. You can write MK or OL, one and the same thing. So this way you have given the pictorial presentation of the concept APC. And in this very figure, if they say find out MPC, so you take another point of reference K dash, you drop it down, L dash, you take M dash, right? So what is the change brought in consumption and income? You make this line meet and name it as R dash. So what would be the value of MPC here? Clearly the change in consumption with respect to change in income. So how consumption has changed? Because we are measuring consumption on y-axis and income on x-axis, right? So consumption would be showcased as K dash R dash. This is the change in consumption because till this level of consumption, it was happening previously also, but at this point now this is the total consumption, so change is this much. I have highlighted both the sides, mm dash you may write or k dash r dash you may write, right? Or what is the change in income? Change in income is you can write k r dash or l dash, one and the same thing. So this is how we pictorially present these two concepts of APC and MPC because these are related to consumption. So we first make the consumption curve and then showcase the same. So it's very much clear that slope of C is indicated by MPC, not by APC. And MPC remains constant. As was told to you before, C is equal to C bar plus BY. This is the autonomous independent component and this is the dependent component of income. So as income rises, consumption rises. As income falls, consumption falls. Right. Now, if you are given C is equal to 20 plus 0.8y, how do you interpret it? That even if there is zero income, 20 units of consumption would happen. So this is the level of autonomous consumption of the economy. What does this 0.8 show? This 0.8 clearly mentions that out of every 10 rupees earned, 8 would be spent. Out of every 100 rupees earned, 80 would be spent, or out of 1000 earned, 800 would be spent. It means whatever is the component left would be a part of saving, which would definitely be made clear in the following pages. Right. With this, we are done altogether with the concept of what do you mean by C? How is it represented on a curve? What are the related components of APC and MPC? So in our next video, we'll talk about savings function. Till then, stay tuned and get back to me with your queries. God bless. See ya.